Treasury Department says the government will hit its debt ceiling in 13 days. And even the risk of a U.S. default is of giant concern to global financial markets. The Biden White House is pushing Congress to act and to act quickly. The president says the decision by Republicans to refuse to help, to refuse to vote yes, could bring an economic catastrophe.
The meteor is headed to crash into our economy. Democrats are willing to do all the work stopping it. Republicans just have to let us do our job. Just get out of the way. If you don't want to help save the country, get out of the way so you don't destroy it. They need to stop playing Russian roulette with the U.S. economy.
Let's get some perspective now. Republican Senator Mike Braun of Indiana joins me. Senator, grateful for your time today. You came to Washington because you're a businessman back in Indiana, and you said this town doesn't make sense. I'll give you some credit off the top. You say both Republicans and Democrats are responsible for getting us into this mess. When you hear the president say, just get out of the way, that would mean in Washington, 10 Republicans tomorrow voting with the Democrats on the procedural motion to get to the bill. You wouldn't have to vote to raise the debt limit. You just have to vote yes on the procedural bill. Why won't 10 Republicans do that and let this pass without an economic catastrophe or even the risk of one?
So you are right. It's been an equal opportunity endeavor of how we got here. January of 19, we were 18 trillion in debt, and we're now 28.4. And I think the key difference here, even though there have been both parties over decades that have taken this biggest business in the world and kind of run it close to being in the ditch. Here, I think the difference is it was not a mandate election. It was tied in the Senate. It was a very close on the presidential side. The House has got a 3-vote margin. So they've teed up legislation, in my opinion, that's piling on to a broken system. And I'll give them credit. I call them political entrepreneurs, and they kind of go for broke. This is their business and a growth business of the federal government. But I think if we keep doing this without holding the line at some point, even though we've had an epiphany, I guess, to say that now is where we draw the line in the sand, I'm going to be one that wants practical solutions, cut to the chase. And part of that would be, let's talk about reforms. Do we want to do regular order, run things through budgets again? Haven't done one of those in 20 years. Put a bill in place like no budget, no pay. That got 53 votes here last week. That would be a difference. And I would say then let's move quickly to where we'd get through this if there are true reforms associated with it.
But that's not, Senator, forgive me for interrupting, but that's not going to happen right now, as you know.
It's
and
not.
Even your leader, Mitch McConnell, has said, he wants to raise the debt ceiling. He does not want to default. As a guy who ran a business, you understand the damage to your brand, the damage to the institution if you go into default. This is Thelma and Louise about to go over the cliff. So Republicans won't give 10 votes, even though I know you're only here for one of them. 3 times the debt ceiling was raised during the Trump presidency on a bipartisan basis. It was raised during the Obama presidency on a bipartisan basis. During the Bush presidency on a bipartisan basis. Why does this have to be at this moment Republicans saying we're washing our hands of this?
A lot of those cases had to do, we had divided government then, and you had to do it that way. I don't know that that's been the case in every instance, but it's been mostly the case. Here, John, I think it's a fact that we've gotten here together, but what they're proposing, what they want our fingerprints on, is an agenda that did not get one vote in the rescue bill that's already there, $1.9 trillion, and there's been not one Republican vote for the reconciliation part. Infrastructure is a valid concern, but I think if we do it and make it easy, we lose the opportunity, and then it's more of kind of going along, get along, and we're another $1 trillion in debt. And this time, I think it's smart that we make a difference and stick with it. I don't think there'll be a Republican vote for it, and I think they can do it on their own through reconciliation.
But again, you ran a business. What if half your employees, the Senate is evenly divided 50-50, what if half your employees showed up and said, I'm so mad about what happened last week and the week before and the year before that I'm not going to work today? No, I refuse because I'm mad at the past things that have happened. The company tanks. So the government should tank because there's a Democratic president now and Republicans are mad at the way things are playing?
The government's not going to tank. I think that's an over-dramatization of what would happen. John, this is going to happen sooner or later through an elongated process, which we've had no appetite to do in the time I've been here and in probably the decade before I got here. So sooner or later, you can't run the biggest business in the world borrowing 23 cents on the dollar every year, taking those structural deficits up to about $1.5 trillion. And yes, it's shameful that we've gotten here. It's been both sides contributing to it. I just think this is a place where you hold the line and they can do it on their own. The difference here is they've got all the levers to get it done. They just want us to be part of it, which endorses the $6.5 trillion that we add on top of the $4.5 trillion we do annually, even though it's spread out over time. It's just going for broke in a time when we ought to say enough is enough. Let's try to fix the place.
I wish we had bipartisan conversations about the fix this place. At this moment, I think history would say that keeping the government on track maybe won't be as bad as I portrayed, but that's what some people worry about. Senator, I'm grateful for your time. We'll watch how this plays out over the next few days. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next.